Welcome ladies and gents, Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter, or of course you can subscribe to the channel Let's Talk Boxing. Let's start off with Daniel Dubois and KEVIN LERENA. You know, when it comes to a fixed fight, there are two possibilities, so to speak. One of them is that the promoter or the organizers of the fight, whether you're talking about the referees or the judges or the timekeepers, these guys are in on it. The fighters are not, but they're in on it, and they know we have to ensure that fighter A beats fighter B. That is one method of considering a fight to be fixed. Another method of considering that is the idea that the fighters are in on it. In other words, it is a predetermined outcome. For instance, KEVIN LERENA will say to himself, there's no way I can win this fight. We have to sell it as though it's a real fight, but I know that I'm supposed to lose here today. So that's the other method of observing it. Now, if you're talking about the former, that Daniel Dubois had some protection, I cannot rule that out. Now, I'm not saying it's necessarily fixed. I can't say that. I don't know that for sure in any way. But there were certain things that took place, which again I touched upon in the post-fight analysis, which to me were unacceptable and are going to draw calls of bias, whether you call it fixed, whether you call it protecting the promoted fighter, whether you call it protecting the Brit, whatever you want to say. There were some things that looked unacceptable. If the clock on the TV was accurate, if they started the clock at the right time, the bell went 10 seconds before the end of the first round when Dubois had been in serious trouble. He'd been down 3 times. Now, because there was a standing count, he wouldn't have been able to go after him until there was 5 seconds left of the round anyway, which is why in the post-fight review, I explained how he had 5 more seconds. And a couple of you tried to correct me and say it was 10 seconds. Yes, it was 10 seconds, but it was a standing count. When the referee stopped the count and they were ready to go again, there were 5 more seconds left. 5 seconds when a guy can barely stand is a long time. You can land another couple of big shots, and those big shots, when you are in the state that Daniel Dubois is, could take you out. Then came the third round, and in that third round the stoppage was very premature, and Howard Foster has been criticized on many occasions for these sort of things. He's got previous when it comes to this. Okay, there's no doubt that LERENA was hurt, but when the bell went at the end of the fight, he got at the end of the third round, he got caught, a couple of big shots, he fell back onto the ropes. If you consider falling back onto the ropes the idea that the ropes broke your fall and it is a legitimate knockdown, that's fine. You then get a standing 8 count. In other words, you cannot be saved by the bell. So I don't expect the referee to say I'm not going to count this because the bell went. But he was bouncing off the ropes. Then he stood up and he had his guard up. In other words, he was ready at the count of 1. If you're going to consider that a knockdown, at the count of 1 he was up. He should have had a standing 8 count, then be shown to his corner. Go back to your corner, regroup, see what he's like at the start of the 4th round. That didn't happen. So if your view is that Dubois got protected, I can't argue with that, something that I've already alluded to. But that's not what most people mean, because I spoke about these things already in the post-fight review. What people are saying essentially is that KEVIN LERENA was in on it too. That he knew I wasn't supposed to win here. And a lot of people are saying he did nothing in round 2. He stood off of Dubois in round 2. Well, let's consider this, shall we? First and foremost, when Dubois went back to the corner, you heard Shane McGuigan tell him after Dubois was rubbing his knee. To me, after that seemingly innocuous looking first shot, there was a delay. He didn't go down instantly. He took a step back and then his leg seemed to give way. Initially, I thought it was his Achilles, but then when he went back to the corner, he was rubbing his knee and he was explaining to Shane that he had a problem with his leg. And Shane was explaining to him, did some brilliant corner work, Shane, to stay calm and not overextend. Keep behind the jab. Keep your legs essentially narrow is what he's saying. Don't overextend. Don't overreach when you're throwing your shot, because every time you do, the leg seems to give way. Now, whether it was an injury to the leg or whether it was an equilibrium shot that made his legs go numb, I can't know. I'm not in Daniel Dubois' mind. The fact of the matter is, after that first knockdown, he seemed to choose to go down on a couple of occasions. Now, is that him trying to regroup to get the feeling in his legs back? Or is it again a problem with some sort of injury and you've got to sort of run it off, so to speak? Again, either way, it's irrelevant. The fact of the matter is, LERENA did not cause the following 2 knockdowns. So for those people that are saying LERENA caught him accidentally too hard with that first shot, affected him, and then had to let off sort of thing, the following 2 knockdowns don't actually disprove that argument. Because the next 2 knockdowns, LERENA hadn't really beat him to the point where he was dropping. It was just whatever had caused that initial injury had continued. So up until this point, There's no debunking of your position. However, they follow on with this idea that Kevin Lerena did nothing in the second round. He stood off Daniel Dubois in the second round and he allowed him to recover. He didn't throw any solid shots at him. Well, that's not actually true. In the second round, with 2 minutes and 47 seconds of the fight remaining, Lerena throws, so right at the start of the round, right? We're talking about 13 seconds into the round. He throws a solid jab and then a backhand as Dubois was exiting. Now, the backhand came off the glove, but they were solid shots. There was intent there. 2 minutes and 43 seconds of the round, we see another solid jab. And this time Dubois changed levels after he got caught with the jab, and Lerena threw a low left hook, a sweeping left hook. Again, it was solid. He actually landed on the glove of Dubois, but it was a solid shot. After that, 2 minutes and 39 seconds, there was another solid jab. 2:34, more of a probing jab. 2:27, there was a body jab. 2:13, a probing jab, and the backhand lands. Okay, so you're seeing power shots now also coming in. You've seen a hook, you've seen a couple of backhands come in. 1 minute and 59 seconds, a left hook, and Ward actually says, Andre Ward, good shot from Lerena. So there is some intent there in those shots. 1 minute and 56 seconds remaining, there's another backhand, it comes off the glove. After this, you start to see the output drop. So initially, for the first minute and 10 seconds, you're seeing him with intent. Then it drops, and to me this is significant, and we'll get to why this might be in a moment. But 1 minute and 51 seconds, you see a probing jab. 1 minute and 46, you see a backhand, and this time it's thrown too high. This is the one shot, 1 minute and 46 seconds of round 2 remaining, where I can see why people that are looking for some sort of underhanded tactics, they could look at this particular shot and say that was unusual. Because Dubois was in range, and when he threw the backhand, he threw it quite high. And as he's thrown it high, it sort of, Dubois got one hand up, it sort of clipped his forehead, but Dubois was in range there. If he'd shot that left hand at shoulder height, if he twisted across and come across at shoulder height, he would have punched through the target towards the chin. Instead, he punches upwards. Now, when you're looking at that and you're considering that, you might say, it's like he wanted to throw a power punch, but not punch the chin and through the target. Now, that one shot alone isn't enough for me to say he purposely missed. It could have just been very poor execution. He was looking for the similar sort of trajectory to an up jab, but a backhand, and he didn't get his angles right. That could potentially be an issue, but that's one shot. Remember, we play the defense and the prosecution. After that, though, comes a reaching jab on 1 minute and 29 seconds to the body. Dubois counters with a left hand, and that left hand is this sort of sweeping downward sort of shot that lands. That's the sort of thing that can make a guy tentative. But that's not why I believe the tempo dropped here from Lerena. 47 seconds remaining, there's a jab. 23 seconds remaining, a jab to the body. On 14 seconds remaining, so right at the end of the round, Dubois slips the jab and he throws a solid uppercut and then left hook. And that lands flush on Lerena. They're big shots. And Lerena tries to throw a left hook as Dubois is exiting, and it clips the shoulder of Daniel Dubois. So there is intent here from Lerena, particularly early in the round. Then his output drops. This is not a guy, to me, that looks as though he's not trying to hurt Dubois. But for a start, the corner were telling him, take your time, be careful. There's no need to rush. You're better than this guy. Pick your shots. Now, why would they say this to him? Well, let's consider this. Back in 2018, Kevin Lerena had tested positive for clomiphene, the same substance that was found in Conor Benn's system. Shout out to James Giff for pointing that out to me, because I couldn't remember exactly which performance-enhancing drug he had failed a test for. The IBO Championship Committee actually cleared him of any wrongdoing. They found him to be innocent in 2019 when it became apparent that he was taking post-operative medication. He was in a rehabilitation process after surgery on his shoulder, and his wife at the time was apparently prescribed clomiphene for her own health, and he claimed that he had mixed up the medications. Now, whether you believe that or not, that's up to you. I leave that to you guys. Like I said, you guys are the jury. A lot of people will feel as though this was done purposely and he hid it because he wanted to cover up some sort of anabolic steroid, which is the reason that clomiphene is often taken post-anabolic steroid cycles to raise your testosterone. We've spoken about this in the past when we covered the whole Conor Benn thing. Whether that was the case or not, whether he was innocent or not, the fact of the matter is this is a guy that was a former cruiserweight. He's not particularly big. I think he's like 6'1", and he's operating at heavyweight. In order to bulk up to be a heavyweight from cruiserweight, when you're not a particularly big guy, let's say he's innocent. If you're not cheating in that way, how are you going to build up and bulk up? You're going to build up and bulk up by doing heavy weights in the gym. You're going to work to build muscle mass. Well, there's a trade-off to muscle mass, and that trade-off is stamina. One of the trade-offs. There's also speed and so on and so forth, but one of them is stamina. The more weight you carry, the more it affects your stamina. Now, if you believe that Kevin Lerena was actually guilty and lying, this particular argument becomes exacerbated and magnified to you, because what you're going to say is he was using something synthetic to build up his growth. Well, now that he's lost that and he's got to do it in a natural way and he's building weights in that way, it's going to have an even greater effect on his stamina. Regardless of where you stand on it, it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is he's not a big heavyweight. He's having to build bulk. Well, as you build bulk and your stamina is affected, that's going to be in the back of your mind when you're involved in a fight against Daniel Dubois. You're going to think to yourself, I can't go hell for leather here, because if I don't get him out of there instantly, I've blown my load. I'm carrying muscle mass which is in excess of what is natural to my body frame. So I've got to pick my shots, and my corner are telling me to pick my shots. I'm too good for this guy. I'm going to line him up. I'm barely catching him and I'm hurting him. Let's not forget when Vitaly Klitschko advised his brother Vladimir Klitschko to take his foot off the gas against Anthony Joshua because he felt AJ was cooked. Was that a fix? Was that Vitaly Klitschko setting his brother up? Or were the two Klitschkos saying, listen, we better not win this fight? Or was it poor tactics? Bear in mind, guys don't always get a second wind. You can often go hell for leather and get caught rushing in and lose the fight. But often guys don't always get a second wind. Anthony Joshua, going back to him, he didn't get a second wind against Andy Ruiz when he was tired and he was blowing hard and Ruiz was pummeling that body up close. AJ didn't recover. So you're talking about a tactical approach. So this idea that Kevin Lerena was in on it, if he was in on it, why would they have needed to cut off the next round so early? Why would they have needed to have been a premature stoppage? If you think Kevin Lerena was letting Dubois off the hook, why do that? Let it play out. I'm going to go down anyway in the fourth. If it's my job to go down in the third, I'm not going to leave it till right at the end of the bell. I would have gone down before that. I wouldn't have hit the ropes and stood back up. I would have hit the ropes and hit the floor and then just rolled around and let you count me out. It doesn't add up. So do I think this fight was fixed? My answer is no, based on the evidence that I've just explained to you. Do I think that something dodgy may have gone on though, in terms of protecting the A side? Well, there's some people that have got some serious explaining to do. I would love to see one of these big boxing channels, ID Boxing or IFL or whoever else, Behind the Gloves, any of them, grab the timekeeper, grab a promoter, grab a referee and say, what's going on here? Why are you ringing a bell 10 seconds too early in the first round and then calling a fight off prematurely without a standing 8 count for the third round? What's going on there? That is legitimate. Those are legitimate questions, and there are legitimate suspicions around that. But to say that Lerena and Dubois and the corners were in on it, I just don't see the evidence for that. And let's move on to Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk. When I first saw this clip and Fury's going at him and Usyk's giving him the death stare, I'm thinking nothing's getting through here. This isn't affecting Usyk at all. He's not bothered at all. But then on closer inspection, there does seem to be somewhat of a reaction. Perhaps. Maybe it's just Usyk doing his own thing and the timing of what was said and how Usyk reacted coincided. Or maybe something Fury said affected Usyk a little bit. Hear me out on this. There's a moment when they're face to face on the apron and Tyson Fury is telling him, I'm going to wipe the floor with you. I'm not a bodybuilder like Anthony Joshua. And at that moment, Alexander Usyk smiles and bares his teeth. And in that moment, Tyson Fury refers to him instantly as gappy teeth and goes on to call him an ugly little man. Now, to you and I, that might appear to just be some immature little joke, made the crowd laugh. But Alexander Usyk's mouth and demeanor go on to change. He licks his lips, closes his mouth, and then the death stare becomes a lot more intense from Alexander Usyk. Why is that? Is that Usyk just doing his own thing and basically sending his own message? I'm the predator, you're the prey, and I'm licking my lips because you're nothing but food to me? Or is it possible that superstar athletes, just like everybody else, might have certain insecurities about themselves, aesthetically speaking, and Tyson Fury touched a nerve? Bear in mind, Tyson Fury's job is to want to not only make Alexander Usyk doubt himself, of course, but he wants Alexander Usyk to be angry. He doesn't want Usyk to be cool, calm, calculated, and box his way to victory and know when to up the tempo. He wants Usyk maybe to hold his feet a little bit too long, put a bit of hurt on Tyson Fury, really hate Tyson Fury, which might allow Tyson Fury to start to use his body to lean on him, to get closer to him, and so on and so forth. Maybe that's a tactical approach from Fury, and is it possible that Usyk bit onto that trap? Now that alone might not be enough to tell you that he's gotten to him in some way, but there's also the moment where Oleksandr Usyk decides to get on his phone. Now when you're face to face with someone and you're having an argument with someone, for you to get on your phone, that's unusual to me. Let's say he turned up in that moment and his thought process was, let me get on the ring apron because this dude said he was going to slap me, and I'm going to stare him down, and I'm going to let the whole world know I'm not afraid of this guy, so I'm going to get in his face. Are you really going to break that stare to get on your phone? If someone's ringing you, you're going to ring them back afterwards. Or perhaps if you're concerned about promoting the fight, again, are you going to get on your phone? Now again, that might be a message from Oleksandr Usyk. That might be his way of saying, you are so insignificant to me, I'm not bothered. I'll get on my phone right now and speak to whoever's on the phone because you are that irrelevant to me. Or is it a case of kind of like a weigh-in where you see guys that are facing off and one of them breaks that tension and decides to start talking and running their mouth or laughing? And sometimes it could just be that they're laughing because the dude in front of him is so insignificant to him. Mike Tyson used to laugh, remember, at Julius Francis. He wasn't intimidated in that moment. But sometimes you do get guys that feel like the tension's a little bit too much and they feel like they need to start speaking. What's your view on that? Furthermore, I will ask the question I also asked post-fight when I first did the analysis. Does this bother Tyson Fury? His potential inability to affect a guy who either doesn't understand or doesn't react to what Tyson Fury is trying to do by planting seeds of doubt. Let me know your opinion on that. Now let's talk about Estrada and Chocolatito. A lot of people are talking about the 3rd and 11th round. Now I had them both as swing rounds. Now when it comes to the 3rd round, one of the things that a couple of people have said to me is, Chris, you do realize that there was a higher connection rate for Chocolatito in the 3rd round. The connection rate doesn't mean much to me personally. How accurate you are is irrelevant. Otherwise, it becomes a pot shot type of situation. If you throw 100 punches and you land 20 on me and you're only landing 20% of your punches, but I throw 3 and I land all 3 on you, I've got 100% connection rate. Yours is 20%. You landed 20 punches on me. I landed 3 on you. Do you see what I'm saying? So for me, the connection rate doesn't mean anything. The fact of the matter is he was getting caught. And this idea that he was catching all the shots. Listen, I love Chocolatito. I think he's an incredible fighter. And I've spoken in the past, I've done videos in the past of how he leans onto that lead foot, gets his head in the pocket, and he'll change levels and hide behind shoulders and arms. And as he slips, he'll throw a shot. So he'll throw a shot to slip and he's punishing you as you've missed, and from that position he'll throw another shot, and then from there he'll throw a short shot and then change the angle and come up with another shot. So as he's being defensive and coming off the line, he's also throwing punches. He's not slipping punching, he's slip punching together. It's incredible. But last night we didn't see as much of that. Last night he was getting caught with shots early in the fight. And some people have said to me, but Chris, it's not about activity. It's not just about how busy you are. It's not about how busy you are. But what you land, the amount of shots you land matters. People are talking about this as though every time Chocolatito let his hands go in a flurry, all of them were landing. That's not true. There was some really good defense from Estrada as well. Okay, so none of these guys were landing everything they were throwing. But Estrada was getting through more consistently. It doesn't matter if the connection rate was lower. It doesn't matter if he wasn't quite as accurate. Okay, it's about how many shots were landing. So this idea that it was a complete robbery when you're talking about numerous swing rounds in there, I just don't see it. But I can accept if you felt Chocolatito won the fight 7 rounds to 5. I can accept it. I'm not saying it's a terrible scorecard, but neither is 8 rounds to 4. So the scorecards were absolutely fine. And I understand when Chocolatito has been blatantly robbed in so many of these other big fights, it becomes very frustrating. And I get that. And you want him to win for reasons of justice. I totally understand that. But it doesn't necessarily mean it was a robbery. Anyway, ladies and gents, let me know what you think about all the topics that we've discussed here today. Please don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on the subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Thanks for watching, everyone. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.